Hey everybody, welcome to Chapter 10 of TrendSpider University. Today we're going to go over the Strategy Tester, and this is something that is very powerful on TrendSpider. This allows you to test any strategy that you're looking to possibly take a trade on, set an alert. In this case, let's say that we're simply looking at the MACD and we want to see how has the MACD performed when the MACD has crossed to the upside. What you can do is you can go to the strategy tester here and you'll see that it's going to pop up at the bottom of my screen. Now there's different things that you can change on the strategy tester, starting with the chart style. So in this case, you'll see that this chart type is currently a open, high, low, close. As we've mentioned in the previous videos, this just means the candlestick pattern. If you want to backtest a raindrop, maybe you want to backtest a blue raindrop, you have to make sure that you change your chart type to raindrop chart. If you're testing a Heiken Ashi chart, you want to make sure that it's on that. So this is something that you can change so that the data is right in line with the chart style that you're looking at. The next one is the time frame that you're going to be testing. In this case, we have a weekly MasterCard chart up, so we definitely want to make sure we're on the weekly. The data is how far back we're looking. So in this case, we're looking back 3,000 candles. The trade by next is something that's really important because once we go and take a trade through the backtester, once the MACD crosses, and I'll talk about this a little more, but once the MACD crosses, you can't take the trade while it's crossing. You have to take the trade on the next candle. So you can change which part of the candle you want to take. So maybe after the MACD crosses, you want to take the position at the close of the next candle, at the open, at the high, at the low. So you can really change this to mimic exactly how you would take the trade in real life. In this case, this next drop-down menu is how you want to take the trade. If you want to make this a long trade or a short trade, you can change that here. It says long only or short only. Now, let's go to the actual backtest here and run a backtest on a simple MACD cross. As I mentioned, you can make this as complex as you want. It does need to stay the same time frame, so just keep that in mind. But you could make a lot of different conditions. Maybe you're looking for a MACD cross, you're looking for a moving average cross, you're looking for a candlestick pattern to happen. You can add all of those parameters here, very similar to how we do things with the scanner and the multi-factor alerts. So go ahead and add parameter here. In this case, as I mentioned, we're looking for the indicator, which is the MACD, this blue here, crossed up through the next indicator, which is the MACD signal. So what we're looking for is a MACD cross to the upside, and the exit conditions here are how you want to exit the position. Do you want to exit the position when the MACD crosses back to the downside? You would click add script, you would add your parameter, MACD cross to the downside. The next exit condition thing you can add here is the add number of candles passed. So you can add number of candles passed, and that's simply a box that you can change. So let's say you want to exit the position after 15 weeks, or you want to exit the position after 12 weeks, which is 3 months. You can do that here. The next option here is take profit. Let's say that you want to take profit once this condition has gone up more than 5% after you enter. You can do that here. You can also add a stop loss, so you can really mimic exactly how you would be trading in real life. So if this goes down more than 1.5%, or maybe your stop loss is 5%, you can put that in so you can really show exactly how this trade would play out if you were in it. You could also add a trailing stop. Maybe you want to add a trailing stop at 5% or 2%. Whatever the case is, you can easily put that in here. Now, on this particular example, let's just do number of candles have passed. So the weekly MACD crossed up is our entry condition, and the exit condition is simply what is the return after 8 weeks have passed. So in order to test this and get all of the data that we're looking for, click test. And you'll see that this data pops up here in a number of different ways. So we have the Price Explorer here, which is showing the mean trade return. It's showing the biggest move, which is the top of this cloud. It's showing the smallest move, which is the bottom of this cloud. And the green and the red just show if it's a positive or negative change. In this case, for MasterCard, you'll see the mean trade return is 4.97%. You can see that there's been 30 different positions analyzed over the last 15 years of data, which is 779 candles. You can see all of these different things here if you add these, so very similar to what we talked about in the previous video on seasonality. You can add all of these different statistical measures here at the bottom. If they're kind of this light gray, you'll see that they're not turned on. Once they have this darker font here, you'll see that they are turned on. You can turn any of these off. You can turn all of them on. You can see the mean change if you just want to see that particular line, and you can really make this very unique to how you want to visualize this. Now, the next thing here is the performance chart. This is probably the main thing you want to focus on for the backtester, because if you're testing a strategy, you want to see, does my strategy beat buy and hold? If it doesn't beat buy and hold, meaning I'm just buying this, forgetting about it, and then coming back to it in 15 years, what's the point of trading that strategy if you could just forget about the stock and come back in 10 years and you're up a lot more? So the performance chart will tell you that. In this case, the first statistic here, this first percentage, is the percent amount that you would make if you traded all 30 of these positions perfectly over the last 15 years. So in this case, you would be up 285.54% if you traded this MACD cross perfectly on the weekly chart and exited after 8 weeks on the close. So 285% sounds great over 15 years, but you'd be up 8,514% if you would have just bought and held MasterCard over the last 15 years. So this performance chart will show you that anytime that this gray line with these green and red lines on it, this is the performance of the actual stock price. And you'll see anytime there's green here, it means that the system took a position. Anytime it's red, you also took a position, but it's a losing position. When it's green, it's a winning position. So if we make this bigger, you'll see here that this is the price chart. And then this blue line here, this blue shaded area, is your return by trading the MACD cross on the weekly chart. So we're way up here on the price. We're way down here on the MACD cross percent return. So you can see buying and holding MasterCard, and this is the start date here. We both of these started at 0. We're much better off just buying and holding MasterCard. So if you can find something where the blue shaded area is above this area, that's when you can really see that your strategy has an edge and it is beating buy and hold. So it's really not easy to find a strategy that beats buy and hold. So if you can find one, you're definitely ahead of the curve here. So just keep that in mind. One thing I'll mention here on the performance chart is a visual representation of your average loss, your average return, your average gain. These little dots are all the individual returns that you've seen over the last 15 years. And as I mentioned, these little green lines on the price chart are going to show whenever you had a winning trade. The red line is going to show when you had a losing trade, and the gray area is just when the price did its thing and you weren't actually taking the trade on the MACD cross here. So in order to do that, as I mentioned, just maximize the chart. You can still see it, but it's a little harder to read when it's just below. Now you can always maximize the chart here and get a little more real estate here to work with. But if you simply want to have this chart expanded, just click on that maximize box here and you will go to full screen. So that is something that's really nice on the performance chart side of things, and being able to visualize these individual trades and the average return, the average gain, and looking at the max win, the max loss. All of this here is something that is really useful from a visual perspective. Now, on the tabular data side of things, you can get a lot of information here. The market simply says what symbol you're looking at in the time frame. The data analyzed is telling you how far back the strategy and the back test is looking back. The net profit is saying what your profit is if you traded this MACD cross, in this case, perfectly. The asset performance is telling us that 8,500% is what it's done over the last 15 years, which is clearly beating this particular strategy. The beta is just the difference that kind of the sensitivity here versus the asset. So it's 0.03. Positions is 30. That means just that's how many positions that have been taken. The wins, 87%. That 87% win rate is pretty good. That means that 87% of the time, a MACD cross on MasterCard has been green over 8 weeks. you've only had 4 losses, which is about 13% of the time over the last 15 years, where you've had to go in and take that loss after 8 weeks. The max drawdown is how big of a drawdown that you're going to deal with within this back test when you do have this MACD crossing. The average win is going to be just your average win over the 30 positions that were taken. The average loss is going to be the average loss over the 30 positions that have been taken. And then the average return is just showing, what is your average return going back and looking through all 30 of those positions. Now, in this case, you'll see that you can also download this as a CSV file. So you can download this to Excel and do more with the data if you'd like. And if you ever want to just reset, you just click reset here and it will reset the back test so you can go and put in some new conditions for your entry and your exit. And then the C on chart is the visual representation and the visual just overall positions that have been taken over the last 15 years. So you'll see that each time a position has been taken, you'll see entry and then exit. Obviously, with it being green, it's a green return, meaning that it's higher than when you entered. Red is going to be lower than when you entered, and you can see where the entry was, where it wasn't, where it ended. So in this case, remember, here's our entry long. Let me just highlight this. Notice that the MACD crossed here. However, we're entering here because you can't enter on something that hasn't closed yet. So as I mentioned, this trade by next close, we're trading on the next weekly close here. So you can change this if you wanted to. Let's say that you, once the MACD crosses, you're happy with just taking a position at the open of the next weekly candle. You can change that trade by next to open. So that's something that's really powerful to mimic exactly what you're going to be doing in real life, so you can get a really good idea of how this trade would play out. So let's go to the what we call the price explorer here. So I'm just going to remove the strategy tester here, so you can see, simply speaking, what this price explorer is. Now, the price explorer, and this is going to be a weird analogy, if you're familiar with how hurricanes are forecasted and where hurricanes can possibly go when they're in the middle of the ocean, a lot of the time weather forecasters use these cones, these forecasting cones that say, well, based on the last 30 years, anytime a hurricane has been in this exact area in the ocean, this is the direction that 15 of those hurricanes have gone, and they stay within a cone. This is exactly the same type of model that we're using here, except we're using it for price action. So you have a lot of different clouds here. If you remember the seasonality feature, we have a very similar cloud here in the seasonality tool. And if you right click and go to properties, you'll see all of these different variables that you can add or remove from the price explorer. So what you can do is you can see the entry price. So this horizontal line here is where we entered on this last entry here. So we had an entry back in late February of 2021, and you can see that this price explorer is 8 weeks long because we said, what's the return after 8 weeks once this is crossed? Well, since there hasn't been 8 weeks yet, you can see that this price explorer is still active. This position is still active, and we can get an idea of how this particular entry is doing relative to everything else. So as I mentioned, if we right click, go to properties, entry price is going to be the horizontal line. So you can see we're pretty much trading right where we started. The 25th and the 75th percentile are showing you what those percentiles are. So we're trading pretty much right in between them for this particular week here. You can see that the wick is right at the bottom of that 25th percentile, and the top wick is right near the 75th percentile. If we get rid of that, you'll see the min-max change. So that's this cloud here. And that's probably my favorite, along with the mean change. So the median change is just looking at the median change over 8 weeks compared to other entries that we've had. But this is what I really like to use. It's pretty clean. It's just simply a line, and then it's the cloud. So what we're looking at here is, What is the average return on the MACD cross? Well, you can see here that we're trading right below the average. The average, if we entered this position here long, you would see here that we enter at around 381, and the average return at this point would be around 393, shown by this blue line. Now, we're trading down here at around 381, so we are actually doing worse than your average return here for the MACD cross. So this gives you an idea, relatively speaking, how is this particular MACD cross doing compared to all the other MACD crosses that have happened over the last 15 years. Now, the top and the bottom cloud here are really important. This allows you to see, this is our biggest move that ever happened after a MACD cross. So let's say that we're trading way up here at the end of this 8-week period. We know that we would be beating the biggest move that's ever happened on the MACD, because we know that this cloud right here is telling us where we would be if we had the biggest move. So if you look back and see all of these entries and exits, the biggest move that we've seen is just being painted here at the top. So if we were near, let's say, the biggest move that's happened in the last 15 years, we would be way up here around 493. Instead, we're at 382 here. So this allows you to visually see how far off are we from the biggest move that's ever happened, and then you could probably guess this bottom cloud is the smallest move or the worst move that's ever happened. And so you can see we're nowhere near the worst move either. We're almost right around the middle part here, right in between the 25th and the 75th percentile. So we're trading right within this cloud here. So this is something that's really nice to see. How are we doing relative to the average move? How are we doing relative to the biggest move that's ever happened and the smallest move or the worst move that's ever happened here? So this is a great way to visualize that data and just get an idea, relatively speaking, how things are going. Now, if we go to back to the back test here, as I mentioned, if you want to download your data here and download it into an Excel file through a CSV, you can click download CSV and it will give you that information. And there's a lot of things you can do with that data. So that's how you can kind of export this data here. So we've really gone over all of the different tools here on the chart. Now, let's say that you either have something that you have a question on. There's always the customer support team to answer those questions, or we have this tutorial video here that you can click on and it will walk you through this as well if there's anything that you are still trying to figure out. So that is the backtester. As I mentioned, if you want some more real estate, click the maximize button here. Now, another thing that I'll mention here is if you do want to quickly go through the other symbols maybe that you're watching, maybe you're watching Procter & Gamble, the system will automatically backtest this for you as you switch. You'll see here that there's been 63 positions analyzed over 31 years of data. And why does this change? Well, because Procter & Gamble has been around longer than MasterCard publicly, and you'll see that these candles, because we are looking back 3,000 candles. So that's a lot of weekly candles to go through. Procter & Gamble has 1,600 candles that we can look back versus MasterCard's, which was in the 700s. So that is why this is different on Procter & Gamble, but you'll see there's been 63 positions analyzed over 31 years of data, and you'll see here that the mean trade return is 1.49. Let's say that we want to go to ExxonMobil. Same thing. As we switch over, the back test is automatically going to run. Your new statistics are going to be here. You'll see that, this is a 153% return trading the MACD perfectly versus 355%. So much better on ExxonMobil trading the MACD cross compared to MasterCard, which had a huge discrepancy between what you could make on trading the MACD versus just buying and holding. So switching through symbols, this will automatically do another back test. So if you have a watch list, you can just go in and use the arrow key to go down through that area, and it will go through each back test. So if you go to the sidebar, show the sidebar here, add a remove widget, we'll remove all of these that I have on this chart, and then you can simply go to add new widget here, go to watch list or scanner, click done. Maybe you want to go through the Dow Jones, and you'll see that as you scroll down through these things, it will automatically backtest, and you can really quickly see, what trades best on a MACD cross. So this is a great tool to use. And as I mentioned before, this is very similar to the scanner or the multi-factor alerts. And the nice thing is this automatically ties to the multi-factor alerts. So alert me next time this happens. If you like the return here, and let's say that this beats buy and hold, you just simply go to alert me next time this happens. You'll see here that you can name this MACD cross weekly bull, and then you can add your note, and all of a sudden you have a multi-factor alert that you can create. So once you do create a back test and you like the results, you then can easily go and make this a multi-factor alert so that you can go in and use this for the next time a MACD crosses on the weekly chart for whatever stock you're looking at. So hopefully this video was helpful understanding the strategy tester, all the different statistics involved in the strategy tester, and let's move on to the next chapter.